You're watching Reality Check. We are breaking an NDTV exclusive. NDTV has accessed a new report by a US-based forensic laboratory which shows how incriminating evidence was planted on the computer of a key accused in the Bhima Koregaon case by a cyber attacker. This was the same case in which 84-year-old tribal rights activist Stan Swamy was an accused. He died in a Mumbai hospital waiting for bail. Till the end, Swamy, like the others in the case, maintained that the key evidence against them brought by the National Investigating Agency, supposed letters from Maoist, was planted on their computers. Now, the new report by the Massachusetts-based Arsenal Consulting bolsters that claim, even raising the possibility that Swamy's computer may have been targeted. Arsenal had put out two reports earlier this year which had found that a cyber attacker had infiltrated the computer of Rona Wilson, one of the Bhima Koregaon accused, 2 years before his arrest, and had planted at least over 30 incriminating documents on Wilson's device. The third Arsenal report, accessed by NDTV, analyzes the hard drive of another accused in the case, Surendra Gadling, showing an even deeper level of infiltration and surveillance, not just of Gadling's computer, but possibly of other accused in the Bhima Koregaon case as well. According to Arsenal, this is one of the most serious cases involving evidence tampering that they've ever encountered. Gadling, 53, is a human rights and Dalit rights activist based in Nagpur. He was arrested in 2018 and has been in jail ever since. The Arsenal report raises serious doubts over the NIA's version, which relied heavily on these so-called Maoist plot letters. Letters in which, according to the NIA, activists allegedly discussed past and future Maoist attacks on Indian soil, including on the Prime Minister, charges for which these activists have spent up to over 3 years in jail, drawing widespread criticism that the charges were baseless, used to settle scores with the government's critics. Arsenal received and analyzed the hard drives at the request of the defense team of the accused, who in turn received it from the investigating agencies. This is what Arsenal has found in the case of Gadling in their latest report. Arsenal found that Gadling's computer had been compromised by emailing him malware. The malware was sent on 3 different instances during February 2016. Malware, as we know, is a malicious software that attacks your computer. The malware was packaged as attachments to emails from Gadling's acquaintances like Arun Ferreira, Harshad Lingayat and Prashant Rahi. These are screenshots that you're going to see on your screen from the report with examples of what those compromised emails look like. Stan Swamy and Sudha Bharadwaj are also CC'd in one of those tainted emails, raising questions over whether their computers too had been compromised by the attacker. The report says that by February 2016, the attacker had compromised the email accounts of multiple defendants in the Bhima Koregaon case. The attacker also used email spoofing services, the report said, possibly to pretend to be Gadling's acquaintances. Gadling's defense asked Arsenal to focus on 14 important documents reportedly found on Gadling's computers. The 14 documents were delivered to a hidden folder by the attacker, Arsenal says. Arsenal says they found no evidence to suggest that the 14 documents were ever opened on Gadling's computer. Such was the extent of infiltration that on a single day, July 22, 2017, Arsenal found that the attacker was planting documents to Gadling's and Wilson's computer in the gap of 15 minutes. This is an extract from the report, which shows that the same file called financialpolicy.rar is delivered to Wilson at 1:30 p.m. and to Gadling at 1:45 p.m. on the 22nd of July 2017. Now, Arsenal says they effectively caught the attacker red-handed based on the remnants of their activity left behind on the computer, and as I said earlier, they've called it one of the most serious cases involving evidence tampering that they had ever encountered. We reached out to the NIA. They said that they would not like to comment since the matter is sub judice. Okay, with this breaking news, let me just first go across to Mark Spencer, President Arsenal Consulting, who's joining us on the show. Thank you very much indeed, Mark, for being with us. Mark, now Arsenal, according to your own bio, has worked on very important big cases like the Boston Marathon bombing, and yet you've called this the most serious case of evidence tampering that you've seen. Tell us why.
Right. So the combination of the size of the malware infrastructure and the length of which it was active. So let's specify a little bit more and get into just the delivery of documents. For documents to be delivered over many months or years,
right?
As I mentioned in the last time we spoke, is not something we've ever seen or heard of. An intrusion for that length of time, which ultimately results in the delivery of incriminating documents. As far as we know, this is the first case of its kind.
Okay, first case of its kind. And also, Mark, since we spoke last time, this new report, because you've done 2 analyses of Rona Wilson's computer, Rona Wilson's hard drive. In this case, in the Gatling case, would you say that it appears that the level of penetration, infiltration, and surveillance is even wider, because you suggest that it's not just Gatling now, it could be other defendants in the case as well?
Well, we know that there were many more individuals that were targeted by this attacker. As to how extensive the compromise of devices and accounts is, we don't know at this time. We don't think anyone knows at this time other than the attacker.
Sure. But you mentioned that there's a possibility that other defendants or the computers of other defendants could have been compromised.
Right. Well, there's no question that they may have been, because they were targeted.
Okay. I wanted to ask you that because you may have heard that very unfortunate, one of the defendants, Stan Swamy, Father Stan Swamy, he died yesterday while still waiting for bail. Now, he was copied on one of the mails sent by the attacker. Does that indicate that his computer too was targeted, perhaps even compromised?
That's an indication that he was targeted. If, as Surendra Gadling did, he opened that attachment and executed it, then his computer likely would have been compromised as well.
Okay. Mark, the last time we spoke, you said that the identity of the attacker wasn't clear. Are we any closer to figuring out who the attacker was?
In terms of attribution, in the sense of naming the attacker, we feel the same as we have throughout our work on this entire case, which is that's really the Indian government that should be involved in naming the attacker. They have the resources, they have the authority, so we think it's appropriate for the Indian government to do that. As far as our role, we are focusing on analyzing the electronic evidence that's put in our hands for that purpose, for the analysis of what we actually have in our hands.
Sure. But when we talk about, the report mentions that the attacker had tremendous resources and time to be able to pull this off, does that kind of narrow the possibility of who it could be?
We're not going to speculate at Arsenal other than giving you extremely detailed insight into what the attacker has accomplished.
I fully understand. All I'm trying to understand, Mark, is that is this the kind of attack that it's not somebody anybody can pull off, like some hacker sitting in a basement somewhere. Is that a fair inference?
That's fair. Yeah, this is an extremely targeted and I would say aggressive attack over time.
Right, because as you point out in your report, this has been going on for years on end. If you were the hacking and then the planting of the documents. But Mark, is it just fair to say that, just to kind of sum up your broad big picture finding based on the earlier and this report, that essentially these supposedly incriminating documents were not actually opened by the defendants, that these were planted or deposited on their computer by this attacker?
Referring to Wilson and Gadling specifically?
Yes.
That's accurate, yes. Those documents which we've been asked to analyze were delivered to the computers in a very similar, nearly identical way using the same malware with even the same password to connect to the command and control server for the malware, the same methodology in terms of how they're delivered using the NetWire.
Right.
There really is no question.
Okay. And Mark, in conclusion, even when the last report of yours came out, the investigating agencies were somewhat skeptical, saying, prosecution can go and get a report from anybody. What's the credibility of it? To that, you would say what?
I feel that we have one of the best digital forensics teams on this planet, not only in terms of our capabilities in terms of analysis, but also in terms of software development when it's necessary to support our analysis. So I've worked hard on making sure that our reports speak for themselves, and they are extremely detailed, both the narrative portions of the reports and the exhibits. I don't want anyone to take our word for it if they just hear something I say or see commentary about our reports. I'd like people to actually see the reports and the exhibits. And again, I think they're very detailed and they speak for themselves.
All right. Mark Spencer, appreciate your getting on the show with us. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to panel. We have with us Vrinda Grover, Advocate Supreme Court. She's had occasion to represent some of those accused in the Bhima Koregaon case. We have Meenal Gadling, wife of Surendra Gadling, is on the show with us. PKD Nambiar, a political analyst, supports the BJP, is with us. Vrinda, just to now put it to you that this latest report, we had earlier the Rona Wilson and now this, how significant are these findings and what sort of legal weight will they have in courts here in India? Because I think already some of the accused have gone to court with the earlier reports. But what's really the import of these legally?
Let us recall that the Bhima Koregaon, where 16 and now 15 people are incarcerated, the fulcrum, the entire foundation of the prosecution NIA case are these alleged documents or letters, which are found, according to them, first in Rona Wilson's device. There were some letters flashed right at the beginning of the call. And then now in Gadling, Surendra Gadling, who's also a lawyer. This is on which the entire case is premised. I am not getting into the question of whether they are admissible under evidence law, etc. Those are matters for the court. Right now, we are on authenticity of the document. What we saw in the first two reports, which pertain to Rona Wilson and now to Surendra Gadling, actually fortifies and reinforces what has been said from day one, that these documents are planted documents.
Right.
It was very puzzling, because if you recall at the Romila Thapar petition time, the dissenting judgment of Justice Chandrachud from the Supreme Court, he said that yes, there should be an SIT because these documents are not adding up, these letters are not adding up.
Right.
Now we understand how this malware is over a period of time to actually plant and park these letters.
Right.
What has been, and we saw this in Rona Wilson's device, now it is clear that the same strategy was used to plant documents. And this is what is held as incriminating material. This is not evidence. Under evidence law, it will collapse. But this is the incriminating material.
Right.
So Surendra Gadling has been in prison since June of 2018. Rona Wilson and Professor Shoma Sen have moved the Bombay High Court, saying that this material is prima facie suspect, planted on devices, and therefore what is the case against them?
Right.
The forensic analysis is clearly requires further. There is a need for further scrutiny.
Okay.
So what this report is saying to us is, and this report is very, very detailed, as was shown on the screen just now.
Yeah.
Every single step as to why this is being shown as malware, where is it parked, how is it planted, is shown with images. So it's not just somebody making a wild remark out of the blue.
Yeah.
There's a technical process tree, etc., which is drawn. Now,
So it needs to be forensically analyzed, as you said,
absolutely
by
So
the Indian
cannot-
authorities. Okay.
So the NIA cannot, as it did last time, say, "Oh, this is some foreign agency. We don't need to listen." No, there is nothing further to be done.
Okay.
There is liberty of people, and as we know, that due to the criminal neglect, Stan Swamy is dead today.
Okay.
So these matters cannot be ignored anymore.
All right. As Mark Spencer said, he said we have the best, arguably the best forensic team in the world. But मीनल जी, आप हमारे साथ जुड़ी हैं. आप बताइए कि अब ये जैसी रिपोर्ट सामने आई है, पहले रोना विल्सन का आया था, अब ये सामने आया है कि सुरेंद्र गैडलिंग जो आपके हस्बैंड हैं, उनके कंप्यूटर पे भी हो सकता है कि इन लेटर्स को प्लांट किया गया हो.
बिल्कुल सर. एक्चुअली ये तो हम पहले से जानते थे, क्योंकि इस केस का मतलब उनसे सुरेंद्र का इस केस से कोई लेना देना नहीं था. वो मतलब एक बहुत ही बेबाक, निडर और अपने प्रोफेशन से लॉयली बहुत ही ज्यादा क्या मतलब
जुड़े हुए थे
जी. तो हम ये सोच ही नहीं सकते थे कि ऐसा कभी वो कुछ कर सकते हैं. बट यस, फैब्रिकेटेड है, ये तो शुरू से ही पता था. ऐसा उनका उस केस से लेना देना नहीं था, ना वो भीमा कोरेगांव कभी गए थे.
तो सुरेंद्र गैडलिंग मेरे ख्याल से उनको अभी ऑलमोस्ट 2 साल हो गए हैं गिरफ्तार हुए.
3 साल हो गए. 6 जून को पूरे 3 साल हो गए हैं सर.
3 साल हो गए,
पूरे 3 साल हो गए हैं. और जैसे कि ये कह रहे हैं फैब्रिकेटेड है, मुझे बहुत ज्यादा आश्चर्य भी नहीं लग रहा, इसलिए क्योंकि सुरेंद्र जो है आदिवासी, दलित और गरीब लोगों के लिए काम करते थे.
राइट.
वो गढ़चिरौली जिला, जहाँ पे बहुत सारे आदिवासी रहते हैं, जिन्हें हमेशा माओवादी करके उन्हें अरेस्ट किया जाता है, उनको छुड़ाने का काम सुरेंद्र
उनको करा रहे थे. लेकिन मुझे ये पूछना था कि क्योंकि बहुत सैड न्यूज थी कि कल स्टैन स्वामी का निधन हो गया, उनको भी बेल नहीं मिला. आई थिंक सुरेंद्र गैडलिंग जी भी कई वक्त से बेल की कोशिश कर रहे हैं.
जी.
और शायद बीच में मेरे ख्याल से उनके
मदर की डेथ हो गई जी.
उनके लिए उनको अलाउ किया गया लास्ट राइट?
बिल्कुल भी नहीं.
अलाउ नहीं किया गया.
अलाउ तो छोड़िए, बल्कि उनको ये कहा गया है कि बेल के लिए वो अपने मदर के डेथ का नाटक कर रहे हैं. तो ये इल्जाम उनपे दिया गया है, बिकॉज ड्यू टू कोरोना डेथ सर्टिफिकेट मिलने में भी बहुत समय लगा हमें, बिकॉज उस वक्त पीक था अगस्त 15, 2020. इट वाज द पीक
ऑफ द होल थिंग. जी, मैं आता हूँ. ओके, मैं आता हूँ आपके पास. पीके नंबर, what do you make of this? Because increasingly now, I mean, the government and its supporters like yourselves can go on saying that, the charges are genuine, these people are actually Maoists. But just look at the mass of evidence that is building up. This is a forensic agency based in the US. They have a professional track record. Anybody, including you, can go and see on their website. They're investigating the Boston bombing, etc., etc. Surely this raises serious doubts about the charges. In fact, Stan Swamy said this very thing in the video he made before his arrest. He said, "I told the NIA that these are all documents that have been planted on my computer. It can be dismissed saying he's an accused." But now you have multiple such forensic reports. What do you have to say?
I believe that are we criticizing our judiciary, or are we doubting our own probe agencies, or are we just believing on an agency which is the US? I'm sure that they were one of the finest, maybe the most credible agency who may have a track record of the forensic reports. So I think it may be very wrong for all of us sitting in a TV studio to criticize our judicial system, which has got a track record. We have one of the senior most Supreme Court lawyer is sitting here. We all have a complete faith in our judicial system.
But
so
I don't know why you say that. I don't know why you say that, Mr. Nambiar, because on so many occasions, political parties openly criticize court judgments that they don't agree with. They openly criticize the conduct of investigating agencies. When the Congress was in power, the BJP said the CBI is a caged parrot. And by the way, that is not limited to the agencies. Supreme Court verdicts have been questioned again and again. Look at the Sabrimala verdict, questioned by the party you support.
Perfect. That's precisely I wanted
So
to
I'm
come to the
saying,
next.
so why can we not raise questions about the conduct of our agencies or the need for a reinvestigation?
Precisely, this is what I wanted to come to the next point. Is that we all, Vrindaji, may I complete my statement? I think we all have the right to criticize our judicial system. The only thing what we need to do is that we should not be the one who is sitting in a panel and deciding the factor that the people who are accused are absolutely clean and clear. There are cases in the case, like for an example in
No, Mr. Nambiar, I am not saying, by the way, I am not saying anybody is guilty or accused. I am saying if all this information has come to light, raising questions on the NIA evidence on these letters, why not have an inquiry? Why doesn't the court or the investigating agency can say, listen, we inherited this case from the Pune police. We didn't, find these computers. Maybe there's an issue here. Let's investigate it. What is the harm in that?
That does happen in a court of law. That do not take place on a TV show. That will take.
But I'm saying, do you agree? In principle, do you think? No. I'm not saying we can decide. I'm asking your opinion. You have a man of strong opinion. Do you agree there should be an inquiry into this?
Srinivasan, I am of an opinion. If an Arsenal report is required to be tested in a court of law, if the judge who is hearing this case believes that this needs to be also checked as a fact check.
Okay, one second. Vrinda Grover now wanted to come in. I must allow her. Okay, let me allow her. Yes, go ahead.
I think we need to be very clear here. This has nothing to do with the judicial system to begin with. I'll come to the judicial system part. This is about electronic evidence.
Right. Vrinda Grover, we've lost your audio. We'll come back to you in just a second.
Can I just come in? So what is that?
Vrinda Grover, we'll come back to you in just a second. Mr. Nambiar, I'll come back to you also in a second. मीनल जी ये बताइए कि अब जैसे वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट जो हुआ स्टैन स्वामी के साथ, बल्कि उनका फ्यूनरल भी है आज, चल रहा है मुंबई में, क्या कुछ उम्मीद है कि इसके बाद कोर्ट्स थोड़ा सा सोचेंगे कि क्या बेल एप्लीकेशंस के बारे में इतनी सख्ती ना दिखाएं? आप उम्मीद करती हैं?
उम्मीद करना चाहिए सर। अभी कोरोना के वक्त से 1.5 साल से सुरेंद्र जो खुद एक लॉयर है और खुद का केस वो खुद ही हैंडल कर रहे हैं, 1.5 साल से उनको कोर्ट नहीं ले जाया गया। ठीक है, आप लेके नहीं जा सकते, बट वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंस के थ्रू भी उनके जो भी डिफिकल्टीज थी, जो भी उन्होंने एप्लीकेशंस डाली हुई थी, अपना डिफेंस वो रखना चाहते थे, उन्हें एक भी बार चांस नहीं मिला। उन्हें कुछ भी पता नहीं होता कि एक्चुअली हमें क्या रहा है। ऐसे में मतलब उम्मीद रखना, वो भी एनआई कोर्ट से,
उम्मीद रखना जरूरी है।
बिल्कुल उम्मीद मतलब रखनी पड़ती है।
ओके,
रखनी पड़ती है।
जी। Sorry, Vrinda Grover is back with us, and then I'll come to you, Mr. Nambiar. Yes, Vrinda.
Yes, I was making this point that what we are talking about here is the electronic evidence, which is the sole evidence on which people are in jail for last 3 years. Electronic evidence by its very nature is highly sensitive and susceptible to tampering, and that is common knowledge.
Okay.
For that reason, the Information Technology Act, the Indian Evidence Act, and judgments of the Supreme Court lay down very strict procedures by which this evidence is to be tested.
Right.
Now, here we have, and we know that as a matter of fact, those letters are neither signed nor dated. There's nothing authentic about them. And here there is a report which is now showing with great forensic detail that this is planted evidence through malware. If the investigating agency and the state is so confident of its evidence, why is it not open to a fresh scrutiny of it?
Right, that's the whole point. Okay.
Secondly, we have already seen Stan Swamy being killed in the kind of conditions and dying in the kind of conditions he was kept.
Right.
Can the liberty of people be restrained on the basis of such dubious material?
Okay, we are very short on time, but I must give Mr. Nambiar Mr. Nambiar. Yes, Mr. Nambiar, let's not lose sight, as I said, of the big picture, the report. Look at how detailed it is. Look at how it is saying 2-3 years of surveillance. Close to 14 documents planted. Simultaneous planting of documents in Gadling's and Wilson's computer. Are these not, you know, as an Indian you should say, of course, this worries me. If this is going on in this country, let's have a probe.
Srinivasan, absolutely. I am of an opinion that if you are saying, as such as senior journalist is saying, this is the Bible of this report and this is the one which should be the primary document, you take the decision. But I think this report should be considered by the High Court or the lower court, the NIR court, and plus to the Supreme Court.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there, but we'll continue to track this big story. Thank you all so much for joining me on Reality Check. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.